I thank my fellow co-chair for these remarks, and before we proceed, I would like to make some opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, alongside my Saudi colleague, I am pleased to open the work of this international high-level conference on the peaceful settlement of the Palestinian question and the implementation of the two-state solution, with the holding of this first wrap-up session on the thematic working groups. 80 years after the creation of the United Nations, we cannot accept civilians, women, and children being targeted when they go to food distribution places. That is unacceptable. Your presence in large numbers here today demonstrates the consensus and the mobilization of the international community around the appeal for the end of the war in Gaza. The New York conference, and this will be my second point, must be a turning point and a transformational juncture for the implementation of the two-state solution. We must work on the ways and means to go from the end of the war in Gaza to the end of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict at a time when this war is jeopardizing the stability and security of the entire region. To achieve this, only a political two-state solution will help respond to the legitimate aspirations of Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace and security. There is no alternative. Faced with the growing number of fait accompli on the ground and the unprecedented acceleration of the Israeli settlement building policy in the West Bank, the prospect for a viable Palestinian state must be preserved through the implementation of concrete measures. That is the meaning of the work of the 8 working groups constituted in the framework of this conference. Those groups are the driving force of our diplomatic initiative. Their work, which will be covered over the course of this morning, aims to identify concrete contributions that can be made to make the two-state solution a reality in all of the political, security, economic, and humanitarian dimensions of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The 17 co-chairs of the working groups have carried out in-depth work, the result of a lengthy consultation process consulting UN member states. They have mobilized, together with international organizations, NGOs, civil society, and thank you all. My third and final message is that through this New York process, we have begun an unprecedented and unstoppable momentum for a political solution in the Middle East, which is already beginning to bear fruit. In the context of this conference, we have managed to relaunch a collective momentum moving towards a political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which responds to the legitimate security considerations of Israel and which ultimately ensures the contiguity and viability of the Palestinian state. We have returned to the center of diplomatic efforts the recognition of Palestine, the normalization and regional integration of Israel, the reform of Palestinian governance, and the disarmament of Hamas. It is in the context of this process that Mahmoud Abbas, in a letter last month, passed on to the President of the French Republic and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, took historic commitments, clearly condemning the terrorist attacks of the 7th of October, announcing the holding of elections in a year's time, committing to reforms to lead to the de-radicalization of Palestinian society, and affirming that this state of Palestine would be demilitarized. Another step forward in this New York process is that France, on the 13th of June in Paris, hosted an unprecedented meeting of Palestinian civil society and Israeli civil society. They held a dialogue on how to emerge from this permanent state of war through a political, just, and lasting solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Faced with the continuation of the war and the humanitarian tragedy in Gaza, through this conference we launched a collective appeal to action. This war has lasted for too long and it must end. The guns must be silenced and give way to an immediate and lasting ceasefire. All of the hostages captured following the barbaric attacks of the 7th of October 2023 carried out by Hamas and other terrorist groups must be released immediately, unconditionally, and in dignity. The calvary of the civilian population in Gaza in the midst of this humanitarian catastrophe must end. Ladies and gentlemen, the co-chairs of the working groups, the work that you are going to present to us today will serve as a compass for the entire international community to pave an irreversible political path towards the implementation of the two-state solution. Thank you.